Hello, everyone. It's Shane Kanto, your Wasteland reviewer, and welcome to the Wasteland Vintage Roadshow here on the SPM Crew Podcasting Network. And this is my monthly podcast where, I just gush about my favorite movies. And it's a wonderful excuse for me to go back and watch some of them. And this month, I'm going to be talking about the Elia Kazan classic from 1954, starring Marlon Brando, On the Waterfront. And joining me is my friend, member of the movie club, and musician, Alex Sanders. Thank you so much for coming on.
Thank you for having me, man. I'm excited to see you and I'm excited to talk about this movie. A lot of legendary performances
Hmm.
and legendary scenes that stand the test of time.
Absolutely. And Alex and I have known each other for a long time at this point, and you might recognize Alex if you've listened to our album analysis episodes on my YouTube channel for sure. But we are here to talk about On the Waterfront. An ex prize fighter turned New Jersey longshoreman struggles to stand up to his corrupt union bosses, including his older brother, as he starts to connect with the grieving sister of one of the syndicate's victims. And indeed, this film was directed by Elia Kazan, starring Marlon Brando, Carl Malden, Lee J. Cobb, Rod Steiger, and Ava Marie Saint, who was extremely young at the time of this film being made, and she wound up living to like 100 years old. Um,
Wow.
but so basically, how I like to start off the show by kind of like hitting at some like broader topics, and it's hard not to talk about Marlon Brando. So, Alex, what is like your experience with Brando? What are your thoughts on him as an actor? What are some of your favorite films of his?
Sure. So he is probably one of the most like instantly inspiring actors,
Mm,
And I did some stage acting, and at the time, even though I hadn't seen a lot of his performances, just the few that I had seen were so inspiring. This one probably being the most inspiring, I
mm,
would say. And to this day, I have to be honest with you, I haven't seen a whole lot of his films. I've seen this. I saw Streetcar a while back,
yep.
Godfather, Superman, and then another movie called The Score with him and
Hmm.
um, Edward Norton,
Yeah,
and De Niro too. So I haven't seen a lot of his stuff, but this movie, this performance just this stands out and was very inspiring at the time. So he definitely left a legacy of being one of the most raw and real, movie stars, actor movie stars.
mm,
And so, yeah, that's how I felt about him as a stage actor for a little while. And that's even watching this now, I still feel that. I still feel like, wow, I can really feel it, deep.
absolutely. And I have seen almost all the ones that you mentioned. I haven't seen The Score, but like I've seen The Godfather when I was 10 years old. Obviously, Marlon Brando had been in my life for a long time, and it was so weird going back and realizing that like he was considerably younger than Don Corleone in that movie
Right.
because they
Yeah,
aged him up like 20 years.
yeah,
Because the man was in his 40s when he made The Godfather,
right.
which is so interesting. But obviously, Streetcar with the whole Sarah
Yeah.
and that whole entire legacy of that film, that stage show, and then obviously this the Wild One, I watched quite a few times and also dressed up as his uh biker gang character a few times.
Yeah.
I know I at least did that once for Halloween. But Marlon Brando, and obviously you mentioned Superman from the planet Krypton, um, just showing up, Apocalypse Now, um, which he Last Tango in Paris, like was notorious for being such a hard person to work with
Mhm.
because he was a diva.
Yeah.
He certainly did not play well with others and caused a lot of problems, which is why they had to take out an insurance policy on him for The Godfather, so he didn't torpedo the
Wow.
production of it.
Now, was he that way? Did he have that reputation at this time when this movie was made?
I don't think it was that bad. I think it was like by the time, because like if you like, I'm looking at his IMDb, he worked very consistently through the 50s, and then come the 60s, things started to like look a little different. He didn't get as big of roles. I think it was he got that reputation that people didn't want to work with him because he was a terror to work with.
Mhm.
Which was so interesting that him and Val Kilmer both wound up in the Island of Dr. Moreau. Seeing as both of them had that reputation, and that movie was an absolute clustercuss
Yeah, yeah,
of a production,
right. Yeah.
which it's so interesting because like Marlon Brando is arguably one of the greatest actors of all time. But
Mhm.
that doesn't mean he was a great person or an easy
Yeah,
person to work with
right.
specifically. But at this point, like obviously he was extremely committed, and kind of like segueing into talking about the method
Right.
acting, which I feel like most people know because of Daniel Day-Lewis and the fact that like he actually becomes a different person and then stays in character, or at least Tropic Thunder where they made fun of him in it. Staying in character is like I stay in character for the DVD commentary. um Which then, if you actually watch the DVD commentary of Tropic Thunder, it is Kirk Lazarus,
Yeah.
Robert Downey Jr. as an Australian doing it, and not Robert Downey Jr. But like that
Great.
kind of
That's
idea.
great.
But like the method isn't just like become another person. It's not the master of disguise. It's you live the emotions. Like you like get yourself to that place where you're actually feeling the emotions and you're not just putting on something.
Right.
And that's the
Yeah.
big difference between like what the method was
Mhm.
going for, which Carl Malden was a part of that too, and a lot of Elia Kazan's uh cast members were from the actors studio and like the method,
Yeah.
because it's like they were going for this authenticity. This isn't like, you know, apparently this didn't actually happen, but this is a fun anecdote from Marathon Man of, Dustin Hoffman
Mhm.
staying up for like days to look like he was exhausted, and
Yeah.
Lord Laurence Olivier just being like, how about you just act?
Right. Right. Yeah.
Like apparently he didn't actually say that, but whatever, that's a fun story.
Oh,
Like
really?
the
Oh, okay.
idea the
Yeah.
idea is that, somebody like a Laurence Olivier did stage acting.
Right.
And it's you are on a stage, you have to project, you have to put this character out there. And here it's
Sure.
like it's little things. It's like really being in it. And
Mhm.
you can tell because Marlon Brando feels like one of the most naturalistic actors you're gonna find at his
Right.
prime, because like not once do you think he's portraying a character.
Mhm.
Like this
Yeah.
is a man right in front of you living this story and these emotions for sure.
Right. Right. Much like Daniel Day-Lewis and all the great performances that came from him
Yep.
so many years later. But you're right. Not for he doesn't miss a beat. I buy into the character the entire time, and I know I've heard that debate before about like you could just act. I think that, and when I was acting for the little short time that I
Mm.
was. I remember there was a night where like I used all these because they tell you to use like motivations so that
Yep.
you can get like really into it. And at the time, I think my grandma had passed away a little before that, so I used like the grief of that to really cry, and I was crying my
Mm.
eyes out. And then I went to my director the next day. I said, I can't do this. It's too much. It really messed with my head the other night. And he was like, so what was going through your head? I was thinking about my grandma and all this. And he's like, all right, whoa, whoa, whoa. You don't have to think about your grandma. Like just play the character and like be into the character. And so, that kind of helped me like, okay, I have to get emotional. But if I get too emotional, I was only like 20 years old.
Mm.
I'm gonna go off the rails here. But you know, when you when you have that like that deep level of emotion and you're really feeling it and you're actually trying to like live that way,
Mm.
it's I mean, it's awesome. It's part, it becomes part of the art. It's like that in the Prestige, when he
Mm,
says this is the art right here. This guy, he walks this way wherever he goes, like the
yeah.
Undertaker in
Yes.
WWE. He's Undertaker all the time. Like Undertaker was like the method actor of WWE, right? Like,
It's all
you
kayfabe. You
yeah.
gotta keep kayfabe all the time.
Yeah, I mean that's talk about respect. And that's amazing.
Mhm.
And so you respect it. Do you have to do it? No, maybe Marlon Brando had to do it. And the argument is, if Marlon Brando didn't do that, maybe he wouldn't have been as successful because he found that wave and that made sense for him. Daniel Day-Lewis wouldn't be the same actor, and those movies might not be the same if Daniel Day-Lewis isn't doing it that way. So it
Mhm.
changes the film, right?
Yeah.
Like it actually changes the way the movie feels because they're doing it that way. Could it be as good with a different actor? Maybe, but it would be different. So I think that's where that debate kind of comes into play is how it changes the feel.
Well, and I think that's the important thing that you brought up. It depends on the person, because some people might not be able to just turn it on and
Mhm.
be able to get into a scene. They have to like put themselves into this situation to really feel it.
Mhm.
And it is a very different kind of acting and approach. And you can watch any Daniel Day-Lewis performance and like think about Gangs in New York, like him like chopping up all that meat and everything. It's because he became an amateur butcher for real
Mhm.
to
Right.
prep for the movie.
Wow.
And there's just a level of authenticity to it. And like he was in a boxing movie in the 90s. He learned to box. He
Yeah.
became a boxer. And
Sure.
the stuff that like De Niro would do at peak for like he was a taxi driver at night for months,
Yeah.
prepping for Taxi Driver, or the shit that he did to his teeth for Cape Fear to like sharpen them.
Wow. I didn't know that. He
Yeah.
actually did that. That's
Yeah,
insane.
yeah, and then got them medically like fixed
Wow.
afterwards. And then, Raging Bull, where like he went on a cruise for like 2 months and gained 50 pounds.
Right.
Um, and like Christian Bale does those kinds of things, and apparently he can't do
Yeah.
that anymore because his doctor's like, dude, stop it. All of
Oh,
the weight
Christian
gain and
Bale.
yeah.
Yeah. Right. Right. Yeah. Especially with the machinist when he
Mhm.
gets down to like 120 something.
And
Um,
then American Hustle and Vice, where he
Vice.
had like
Yeah.
herniated discs because gut.
Yeah. Right.
As somebody who struggles with their weight, walking around with a large stomach does hurt your back a lot.
Oh, for sure. Yeah.
And
Yeah.
it's just like that kind of strain, but like committing to that. And, you know, Brando was one of the first ones that was like, it's that intensity going in with the method acting and everything. And then going in here, so like, it's very interesting that like Elia Kazan is a very famous director,
Mhm.
and a lot of his like big films like this or Streetcar Named Desire, like there's a level of feel like there's a play going on. And especially like Streetcar because like it's much more like confined.
Yes. Very
There's more
much.
cinematic elements too on the waterfront
Yeah.
than there are in Streetcar Named Desire, but like I just love his approach to capturing this film. There's striking imagery like that one sequence when you know Harry finds Charlie and then they have that giant truck barreling down that alley at them, and it's so perfectly shot, it's intense.
Mm.
And that's one of those moments where it's like Eli Kazan was probably really stepping out of what he was used to on the stage,
Yeah.
doing plays
Right.
and stuff like that and capturing something cinematic. I love that like POV shot at the very end of the film where Harry's like
Yeah.
has the shit kicked out of him and he's
Right.
dragging himself up to the foreman. He's like, let's go to work. And it's just
Yeah.
like you feel it. And I think those are some really inspired choices from like a directing and cinematography standpoint to really get you into the film. And there's certainly a lot of staging, like something as simple as that conversation in the car between Terry and Charlie,
Yeah.
and the feeling. But I
Oh
think
yeah.
Gilly Kazan brings something special here, where it's like, oh, Streetcar Named Desire feels very like, yeah, you could tell this was a play at some point, but like there's something
Right.
very cinematic about the approach
Like,
that he brought here for sure.
I remember as somebody who is I'm more I have a stronger ear and eye for theater now than I did when I saw Streetcar.
Mhm,
Streetcar didn't really grab me because of that. I remember feeling like this feels like a play to me. Um, on the waterfront really does feel like a film, and
mhm,
yeah, I think especially from like I would say like 30 minutes in, it's hard to stop watching it. Like
mhm,
the spontaneity really picks up in his direction and his editing. And the scene that stuck out to me from an editing standpoint and shot standpoint
mhm.
was when after the priest convinces him to confess, and he goes and he confesses to the woman,
Yeah,
you know all those different shots, and you don't hear them talk. You just hear the whistle from the ship, and
such a
that
great
was
scene.
awesome. That was like great. I mean, anybody who wants to get into like shooting and editing like that was how to do it. That was fantastic. And her look of horror, and he's trying to convince her it's not that, oh, I didn't mean, it's like it's really,
The
uh,
classic. I didn't know what they were gonna do,
yeah,
and
right,
it's just like you didn't,
right,
and
right.
that's the challenge of that. But no, that scene's incredible,
And we'll
and
talk more.
because
There's
yeah,
a lot of what do we call that? I mean, what you just said, I didn't know what they were going to do. There's a lot of um, innocent bystander stuff going on in this movie, and it's very, very, very relevant. It's always
mhm,
been relevant. It's just as relevant as it's ever been. A lot of the innocent bystander, stuff going
mhm.
on.
A
So,
lot of that, and especially like getting into this because like this crime thriller, when
yeah.
it like when you really take a step back and think about it, like obviously there's a lot of like drama, but
Mhm.
this is a crime thriller. It's a corrupt union. It's very like this was ripped from the headlines of a lot of things happening with unions for like workers unions and stuff like that. And even putting into context, it's like it's very interesting thinking about like unions over the years, and the Jimmy Hoffa and being involved with the mob. And like obviously this is very much a union led
Yeah.
by a mob. And that idea of the bird metaphor that they utilize in this, I feel like is so impactful because it's no coincidence that Edie's brother had pigeons
Right.
and took care of them, and then that Terry picked up taking care of them. And it's just like again and again, I'm not a stool pigeon, and I'm not gonna. It's like it's very interesting if you think about like The Departed, the rat, and
Mhm.
Alex will enjoy this because he'll be able to see Jack Nicholson making his rat face. But
Yeah.
like it's like there's a rat in my crew. And obviously it's like they're using that specific kind of imagery. Here it's specifically your stool pigeon. And there's literal pigeons. And something that Terry picks up taking care of when he knows deep down that
Yeah.
he had something to do with his death.
Right. And
He
that's a
didn't kill him.
right. I noticed that too. It's almost like he takes on his presence. Like it's almost like a ghost that follows
Yeah,
him around, is the death that he doesn't take responsibility for, but he ultimately has to confess to
yeah.
it, you know. Um,
Well, and that
And
was such a
then that
tragic.
plays into the martyrdom, the role of the martyrdom. Who's the real martyr in this
Yep,
movie? This is really is Edie's brother,
yep.
right? Is the yeah,
Well, and at the end of the day, when Charlie decides that he's going to testify.
Mhm.
And even that little kid that he was mentoring killed all those pigeons.
Mm.
And that was heartbreaking. Like Terry, who, like, you know, Terry Malloy's a tough guy. He was a boxer.
Yeah, right.
And, you know, he's an enforcer for the mob, basically. But like there's a vulnerability to what Marlon Brando brings to this character. And just the way that he breaks down because of these pigeons.
Yeah,
He's like, you didn't have to do that. Like, you didn't have to do that to these birds because they're innocent.
yeah.
And it's a challenging thing because the people in this neighborhood are innocent birds that are stuck in a cage.
Okay, okay, that's very good. That's very good.
And, you know, they could say something, but you don't want to wind up like those pigeons,
Yeah,
where it's just like you wind up dead.
right.
And that's the kind of power that they have.
Yeah.
And it takes somebody inspiring the rest of this community to stand up.
Hmm.
Like, this is gonna sound silly, but a bug's life.
Okay,
You have the grasshoppers, but how many ants do you have?
right. Yeah.
Once the ants realize that there's like thousands of them, they can stand up together.
Yeah.
And that's really what this takes for them to be able to change this, is that Harry takes that horrible beating to inspire the rest of these longshoremen to
Yeah.
actually do something,
Right. Yeah.
because their livelihood is under is under hostage.
Yeah.
The thing is, like, you do one thing that they don't like, you're not getting work, then you're gonna not be able to pay. You're not
Yeah.
gonna be able to feed your family.
Right. Exactly. And that was one thing I noticed with this is the control over who works and who doesn't,
Mhm.
being a control over their freedom, a control over their livelihood, and most of the scenes on the dock, I know, you had a little thing about cinematography in there. Um, the movie starts off feeling like a noir,
Yeah.
right? But the shots on the dock, obviously, because they're outside, so it makes sense that they're brighter. But I feel like the brightness, maybe I'm adding my own thing in this, but it feels like work like is a shy they show work as like a shining thing. Like this is the, like the answer. We're
Yeah.
proud to work. We want to work. We want our men working. Because if they're working, they're not committing crimes and they're supporting their families. It makes
Mm.
the world better if our men are working. It was the 1950s, right? So it was
Yeah.
like, post World War II, it's like work is a good thing, you know, very different from the decade that I grew up in. Uh,
It's a it's very interesting because, like, this is certainly the greatest generation,
yeah, right.
and their work ethic, and why the carrot to this whole thing is being able to work.
Yeah,
And,
yeah,
well, and at the end of the day, we all have to work in some
right
shape
on.
or form
Yeah,
because we need
sure.
money
Yeah,
to take care of ourselves. But, like, you're right, there is such a value put on work in this,
mhm,
and that's being held hostage by this union.
yeah, right.
And, like, this does have those elements of very traditional masculine perspective of, like, I need to be able to work and provide for my family or I'm not a man.
Right. Yeah,
And
yeah,
that's held over all of these workers on the dock.
right.
And, you know, unions are such an interesting topic, especially today, because you have some people who are very, very, very strongly pro union and the importance of being able to protect your employees. And then you have a lot of people that are extremely anti union. And this is one of those interesting situations because, like, it's like, what does the union really do for you? They take your money and they're in it for themselves. And you have union leaders that are very rich and getting rich off of your back. And
Right.
this is an interesting situation because this isn't just like a regular union. This union is literally run by the mob.
Yeah.
So, like, it's much more objectively, this is not a good union here.
Yeah,
They're doing criminal things.
right.
And, you know, you have CJ Cobb's Johnny Friendly,
Mm.
which what a name.
Right.
What a name for a guy that's not so friendly and not so kind, or
Right.
somebody who doesn't want to do what the actual work is, but make a whole bunch of money off of these people and control them.
Yeah.
But it's so interesting looking at this perspective, and it's like, working like I work in higher education, there's very strong unions, um, especially at Ryder, and it's a very interesting dynamic because like I'm not in a union.
Right.
I'm an at will employee. If Ryder decided tomorrow that they didn't need me anymore, they could just let me go.
Yeah.
And that's how that works. But like this is interesting because like this was actual stuff happening at the time.
Right.
And obviously this continued into like the 70s with like, Jimmy Hoffa and that kind of stuff, and to the corruption of unions and how much money were taken from these people, because like that's the thing, if you're in a union you got to pay dues.
Right. Yes. Right.
I want to
Exactly.
know where the dues are going
Yeah.
for this
Right.
particular union.
Yeah. That's right. That's it's a very it's back and forth and it all depends. But I know I wish my mom had a union. I wish paralegals had a union because, yeah, same thing. Paralegals, they work for, a small fraction of what attorneys make, and
Mhm.
these can just replace them anytime they want. And my mom has been a paralegal for since the mid '90s, and she's dealt with some real BS. So sometimes I wish she had a use, so she had a little more protection. You
Yeah.
know,
Well,
um,
and that's the whole entire idea of what a union's supposed to be,
protect
is
your job, right?
protect protect the workers and make sure that their best interests are being taken care of. And obviously that is not what's happening in this film. It's uh you have to be in the union to be able to work, and then the union decides who gets to work.
Right. Yeah.
And obviously it's very subjective, and they make decisions based off of who's in good graces with them, who's been acting up or not. But it
Mm.
makes for a very compelling structure and very timely things to be confronting. And I feel like that's what gives this film even more of that like oomph of
Yeah.
being like, this is some real stuff going on at the time, and it brings that authenticity to it.
Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah.
Well, and when you look at like, this is an extremely well written screenplay too, and the credits of Bud Schulberg, who wrote the screenplay, and then Robert Siodmak that was uncredited on it, but these were based off of articles written by Malcolm Johnson about these unions. And there's so many strong characters with a lot of depth.
Yeah.
There's a lot of well staged conflicts. There's
Yeah.
layers to these conflicts, and just you have romantic subplot, you have this brotherly connection between Terry and Charlie, you have this priest who's bringing that layer into it as well. And Kazan brings Schulberg's screenplay to life so well, and just layering all these things in here, and nothing feels like it's being shortchanged. It's all progressing well, and it all comes to such a satisfying crescendo
Yeah.
in like such a perfectly staged, emotionally impactful sequence for sure.
Yeah, yeah, no, the other characters and the other actors, I mean, this is such a great ensemble. I mean, they all play such pivotal roles, and they're all important to kind of telling the story. Even
Mm,
Friendly. I mean, it's a great
mhm.
performance.
Yep.
Even though you hate him, he makes you hate him. You know, and the idiots around. I do laugh at some of the idiots that are around him, though. You can't help but
Mhm.
laugh. um, and yeah, the obviously there's a lot of Christ imagery you notice very early on,
Hmm.
um, there's a lot of
Hmm.
crucifix in the movie, in the apartment, and when they're in the church and Brando puts his arms like this over the
Yeah.
pew, to the pew, um, you know, um, Edie's brother really does end up being a martyr, in a way,
Mm.
and Brando ends up, risking having that martyr sort of role. So there's a lot of that Christ imagery, but man, the scene with I know you want to talk about the church scene, but the
Yeah.
scene with the preacher, um, at the harbor
Yeah.
after they kill the man, it's like, holy moly. That scene to me, that's my, like, not my, well, I guess I shouldn't say it's my favorite scene in the movie. I think it's the most important scene in the movie, and I think it's the most, for today, it's the most relevant scene in the movie, that the preacher's monologue, because he's talking about injustice, and he's talking about, that innocent bystander thing I was talking about before.
Hmm.
Um, and the fact he's like, the church is, I am in church, right now. Like that's one of the most powerful scenes. I actually shared it on social media.
Yeah.
I watched it. I had to, I was like, oh my God, like, you gotta
I think this
watch
was
this.
the scene quote in particular. Some people think the crucifixion only took place on Calvary. They better wise up. Taking Joey Doyle's life to stop him from testifying is a crucifixion,
Mm,
and dropping a sling on K.O. Duggan because he was ready to spill his guts tomorrow, that's a crucifixion.
yeah.
And every time the mob puts pressure on a good man, tries to stop him from doing his duty as a citizen, it's a crucifixion. And nobody who sits around and lets it happen, keeps silent about something he knows that happened, shares the guilt of it just as much as the Roman soldier who pierced the flesh of our Lord to see if he was dead.
Mm,
And that moment, and like, I love Carl Malden. I feel like he was obviously really appreciated in his time as such a great character actor, but I don't feel like a lot of
yeah.
people today that are cinephiles, unless they really dug deep into classics like this, really probably know who he is. But between this and Streetcar and Patton, where he plays Omar Bradley, um, up against George C. Scott's George S. Patton, it's
Yeah.
just he is so compelling in this film and this scene where he just calls everybody out on their shit
So
and
good.
just lays it down there, and like they pelt him with a tomato,
Yeah.
and he just screams out like, somebody says, go back to your church, father, like, boys, this is my church.
It's my church. Yeah.
And if you don't think Christ is down here on the waterfront, you got another guest coming. And
Yeah.
that is such a great line. If you don't think Christ is down here on the waterfront, and that really ties so much of this film together. It's such a powerful moment because like they accidents happen, as I throw up air quotes here.
Yeah.
um Obviously killed Duggan because he was gonna testify. And it's so interesting, you know, it's so interesting in film to see the Catholic Church actually portrayed as like conveyor of good, to be
Right.
honest. Because like,
Yeah.
especially in like modern cinema, you're not gonna really see that.
That's
But
true.
like,
Yeah. Yeah.
this is such an interesting thing, seeing a priest who, because at the end of the day, it's like, can the priest really do anything?
Yeah.
He can only try to inspire his flock.
Right. Right.
And that's what he's constantly doing throughout this whole entire film. And
Hmm.
like, unfortunately, like Duggan died. Harry almost died. But like, something had to give.
Yeah.
Something had to give at this point. And going back to like how he got Duggan to agree was like that attack on the church
Yeah.
was so intense and so well put together. And I love that moment where he finally convinces Duggan to do it at the end,
Yeah.
because that is such an
Right.
important piece to putting this all together.
Sure. Yeah. Yeah. You know, and wow. I mean, think about the guilt that comes with that. I mean, it's probably one of the reasons why it fired him up so much. It's like he inspired him to do this and he dies for it.
Yep.
You know, I didn't think about that.
Well,
Um,
and he is a priest, but he's still a man. He's still human and can
yeah.
feel the weight of that on him. Like he
Oh, yeah.
sees this dead man right in front of him. It's just like, I pushed him to do this.
Right.
And
Yeah.
you know, this film is a long road for Terry Malloy with a lot of pitfalls and trauma and tragedy along the way for
Yeah.
him to become that savior at the end that steps up and
Yeah.
sacrifices his body
Right.
quite literally, seeing as
Right.
he had the whole entire crew kicking the shit at him. And he's just a
Crazy
bloody
fight.
pulp
Yeah.
almost washing away into the water. And he inspired them all to come, like, step up
Right.
and actually do something. And like he did it. He went to the hearing, he testified,
Yeah.
and obviously felt that ramification.
Oh, yeah.
But what's interesting about this film too is like it has a romance through it. And it's born out of like this guilt of like Terry
Right.
engaging with Edie in the first place.
Yeah.
And it certainly has some of those like Marlon Brando, most of the men that he played that like winds up having romantic relationships a lot of the time is a very animalistic, very primal kind of man that, speaks with his actions and not with his words. And you
Uh,
have some of those moments that feel like very 1950s in terms of how he like physically engages with a young
yeah.
woman.
Right.
And like
I thought about that. I thought about that. Yeah.
and it's just like this is every Brando. Well, obviously, it was significantly worse and also thematically important in Greek Card Named Desire
Right.
when
Yeah.
he forces himself on Blanche in that film. But
Mhm.
like here, it's like he's not asking first. He's kind of just taking that. But like, I love that moment where they're walking through that park, and this is the method moment because I remember learning about this in my great performances on film class in college when Eva Marie Saint accidentally dropped her gloves.
Mhm.
Like that wasn't supposed to happen. That wasn't in the script.
Okay.
And when Brando picks it up and
For
he's
sure.
just playing with it, like he puts it on, he's like picking the
Yeah.
leaves out of it, and he just goes with it. And
Yeah.
that's what feels so natural about his performance and what he brings is because like he's in it. He just rolling with whatever's happening. And it's like you're having this great sequence of them getting to know each other, him trying to get her to open up, while also like he's playing around with her glove, fitting it
Right.
on, stuff like that.
Sure.
And there's just something so natural about it.
Yeah.
And when you have a film like this is what the method's about. It's about you living this character in the moment, and it makes the film feel so much more organic. And here's the thing, I love artistic, hyper realistic, and unnatural kinds of presentations of film. Like I'm a Wes Anderson fan. There's nothing natural about watching a Wes
Yeah.
Anderson film. You're watching a movie.
Oh, yeah. Oh, sure.
And I love that kind of stuff because like I love what film can do. Like you're watching a Coen Brothers movie, you're watching a movie.
Yeah.
Like those kinds of things. But
Sure.
something like this where you see it feels so real, like you
Yep.
kind of feel like you're just kind of watching two young people in the park
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
seeing them interact, and it's just like you just happen to be there.
Yeah.
And I appreciate that, and I think that it really works for developing their dynamic because like obviously Terry's coming into Edie's life in a place of vulnerability for her
Right.
because she just lost her brother.
Right.
And he's the one who set him up,
Right.
and he
Yeah.
has that guilt. And like, is he trying to build up to a point where he can finally tell her? Is that his motivation?
Mhm.
Does he really like her? obviously after a while he definitely does like her. And then that's why he finally wants to like really open up and have to do that. And obviously we talked about the scene where she just looks horrified at what he has to tell her, but I
Yeah.
really bought into their dynamic. And even Ray Saint, for such a like an early performance in her career, I think she does a fantastic
She's
job in this
fantastic.
movie.
Yeah, she's great.
Fantastic.
And
And you're
yeah,
acting against Marlon Brando. So
yeah,
like
it's a lot
that's a
of
big
pressure.
order to fill. So
Right. Well, he's, and he is, even though he has, he was a catalyst of, he had something to do with why her brother passed away. He is kind of introducing her to a different world, a different side of herself that she hasn't been able to explore before because she's kind of been in her own cage, so to speak, in her parents' place, you
well,
know,
and
and
she was
they,
at what was it, nunnery?
right,
Like she was off with the nuns and stuff like
right.
that. And then she comes to the waterfront.
Now she's hanging out with right, with Marlon Brando. Right. She's hanging out with the caveman over there.
Yeah.
So, I mean, yeah, and you could tell she's resisting him, but she also likes, she likes something about him. There's something raw. But she's also getting him to open up, and
Yeah.
she's getting him to be vulnerable, and they did a really, really good job of that. And yeah, I like the glove. I like that he puts the glove on, and I think that it was a happy accident that happened because
Yeah.
he's going into her world and he's changing it. He's changing her world. So I think if you want to, I don't want to look too much into that, but
Yeah.
it actually ended up making a lot of sense for him to do that, um, from a metaphorical standpoint. Um, yeah,
Yeah, I love their dynamic in this. And obviously, their path has some hope there and a
yeah,
potential future. And
yeah,
then the other big relationship that Terry has, unfortunately, ends very tragically, is the one
yeah.
that he has with his brother,
Mhm.
which this is a Rod Steiger of In the Heat of the Night and everything,
Oh yeah,
playing Charlie here. And, that scene in the car, it's like, you don't understand. I could have had class. I could have been a contender.
hmm,
I could have been somebody instead of
yeah,
a bum, which is
yeah,
what I am.
yeah.
Let's face it, it was you, Charlie. And and just that's one of the most iconic scenes in the history of movies.
Yeah,
And Brando sells every second of that. You
yeah.
feel the pain and the frustration
The guilt.
because like Herrick should have been somebody. Like
Mm.
if you didn't have, and it's so interesting because I feel like Sylvester Stallone had to have Harry Malloy in his brain when he was
Oh yeah.
making Rocky.
Oh,
Like,
I was going to talk about it eventually. Of
yeah,
course, Rocky does not exist without
no,
this movie.
no. And you know, it is Charlie.
Yeah,
Like, obviously, I don't think Rocky ever threw a fight in his life, but he's a
but he
mob
went the,
enforcer.
but he went the distance, right? That's
Yep.
yeah. I
Well, and Rocky gets his Cinderella story. This is what would have happened if Rocky never did.
right. Yeah,
And if Rocky got desperate and sold himself out.
right. Yeah,
And this is so tragic because like Perry probably could have been a great boxer. Like you see that. Like he's an uncaged animal
yeah,
at the end and like I wouldn't want to get in the ring with him. He's just like Jake LaMotta over here.
yeah,
Um just pummeling through, but like that scene is so perfect. He pulls the gun on him. I just love the moment of him just being like you have a gun on you, and he just like push it aside. It's just like, what are you doing, Charlie? Just like in the face of like his own brother pulling a gun on him.
Yeah.
And just Brando sells every bit of emotion of that scene. It's just like that moment where he's like, "You better make a decision before we get to blah 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 street," and you're just like, "Oh no, this is not what Terry thought he was getting into here."
Mhm.
And that's just such a powerful scene, and it's literally two guys just sitting in
Yeah.
like a
That's, I
cutout of
think
a fake car.
that's the thing about it. Like when I saw cinematography on the list, I'm like, well, that scene's not really that special from a cinematography, but you don't want to be. You just want to like it's just like the one shot, right? And
Mm.
maybe he cuts back. There is a he does a close up of
There's
Brand,
a yeah,
right? Because you got to get the yeah. But
yeah.
but then it's basically just two different shots, and the Brando. That's what makes the film timeless. I think the film is still a good film without that scene, but I'm not sure we're talking about it all these years later without that scene like just makes it into the timeless category. And everything he says, you feel it, every beat, the way, every inflection, you just feel. I mean, you have a brother, I have a brother, you know what it's like to have a brother,
Hmm.
and you go, oh shit. Like, in some way, shape, or form in your life, you have that same sort of dynamic with your brother. I know I have. And then when he just finishes like laying this on, he just like sinks back and,
Yep.
probably sinks back into his but for years, by the way, anytime I meet somebody named Charlie, I go, Charlie, Charlie.
It's just it's perfect. And yeah, that's the thing. If you have a brother, family can hurt you more than anybody.
Yeah, yeah,
And that's a challenging thing. And that's what makes that scene so painful, is
yeah.
because Terry obviously put all of his trust in Charlie,
Mm.
which he should never have in hindsight. And he suffered for it. And that's what's so impactful about that. I know we've definitely talked around the final scene for sure, but like just that moment of
Yeah.
Brando like calling him out and then getting a straight up fist fight with Johnny Friendly,
Hmm.
and then all those bastards piling in on it.
Right. And then
And
and back to this idea of like he goes to work, like his the best thing he could do, the thing what he could do, you know what? I'm going to work,
mm,
I, oh my God, like we have those moments where it's like, we run through these problems in life. Hey, much, you know what? I'm gonna wake up. I'm gonna go, and this is what I'm gonna do. And then he has that moment. And then of course, he gets dismissed. They treat him like trash. And then it's like, okay, and then he just,
they literally pick everybody else.
yeah.
And then he goes straight to the source,
Hmm.
beats up Johnny Friendly. He gets his ass kicked. But
He gets
then
old. Yeah.
bloody, limping, walking up to the floor, like, let's go to work. Like I mentioned
Yeah.
earlier. And it's just like you have, which also really haven't talked about, like that music swell at that moment too. Just
Yeah.
oh my god. The
Oh,
score
great
the,
use of music. I'm glad you brought it up.
the score in this movie is absolutely incredible. And like Leonard Bernstein, just like it's powerful. There's just like it comes in at times with so much force and it's so iconic. And like if I don't know if this is true for a lot of people, but like if somebody plays music from this, I'm like, I know this is on the waterfront. It
Waterfront.
just so iconic and burned into my brain. Because like I've probably watched this movie 5, 6 times at this
Yeah.
point and love it to pieces, but like that music just underlines everything. That truck barreling down that alley music,
Yeah. Yeah.
this final scene, that triumphant music of him dragging his ass to the front,
Mhm.
and getting there and going to work. And as that like doors coming down and the music and the credits start, there's just so many moments because Bernstein's score is so rich and has so much emotion to it. It's bombastic.
Yeah,
It brings a
right.
lot of personality.
It's a movie score, man.
Yes. I just like think about this or like Sunset Boulevard and just like big this is like big old school movie scores and like you
Yeah,
know things change over time and like we got back to like the fanfare kind of thing with John Williams and Star Wars and Indiana
sure.
Jones and the marches and stuff like that.
Right.
And now they're doing so many interesting and creative things with scores with like atmosphere and tones and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Like this, like you said, this is like old school big movie score. And it just works so perfectly because this movie is like big drama emotion in all the best ways possible.
Yeah.
Because
Yeah.
it's so funny because the acting is not big theater acting, but the emotion is so big because everything like it's so
Right.
natural, but this situation is like a fire keg about to just blow
Oh yeah.
and everybody's on edge and I feel like this score has that kind of feel building up all that.
Absolutely.
And
And you know, yes, it's not theater acting, but and we back to all the characters, but especially Brando, the ability to make it this raw and emotional
mhm,
and risk it being ugly. He used to talk about that a little bit in interviews, like you know, you could come off being too ugly in a film. His ability to ride that line is really amazing and kind of makes him so great because he did it
mhm.
that way. And even the preacher, I'm sorry, his name again,
Carl Malden, yeah.
Carl Malden. Yeah, I mean, like there's a couple areas where yeah, he gets big, and they're able to do it. But the score is big, and the stakes are high.
Yes.
It's gotta be raw. You know,
Mm,
it's gotta be real. Otherwise, it would feel like you have to feel it. You know, this should be it's a person like it's a personal film, even though it feels like it could be a historical film.
yeah.
It could be a political film. Actually, it's really a personal film. It just
Mhm,
happens to be, you know, be mixed in with what's actually what life is really like.
yeah.
You know?
Well, and you know why this feels so big and emotion and everything, but still feels natural? These are a bunch of Jersey people.
That's right. Yes. But I have to say, I grew up, you know, 40 years later as you did, you know, I can't imagine Randall and Dante walking back into the convenience store after getting the crap kicked out of them. I think it's a different,
Don't even get me
at least,
started on Dante.
yeah, and if they right, and if they did walk, they would not be happy about it. Okay, they'd spend the
No.
rest of the day bitching about it. There's no
Mhm.
big music. There's no pride in going back into the store. It's a
No.
completely different movie.
I'm not even supposed to be here today. Um,
Yes, very
very
different.
different vibe. But
And
it's so
Marlon
funny,
Brando
like,
never says that. He never
no.
says, "I'm not even supposed to be here today."
Oh, if you told me
Very
all these
different New
characters
Jersey.
were if you told me every one of these characters was Italian, I'd 100% believe it.
Oh yeah,
Just like the level that they
maybe some
present.
Irish, maybe some Irish in there.
Well,
But
Patrice is definitely Irish. He's definitely not an Italian. But and obviously Marlon Brando is so important to this film to anchor it all down. But the supporting cast is so important too. And like Carl Malden is fantastic. He has so many great moments. Lee J. Cobb
mm,
just like brings that energy. Like he's larger than life. This is why he's the boss. This is how he got in charge of the union. This is how he got elected. And
right.
Lee J. Cobb is so fantastic in this and 12
Yeah.
Angry Men, where
Yeah.
he's the last holdout
Mm,
on the jury. And like oddly enough, it's not his best performance, but him popping up in The Exorcist as that detective, looking into it with that mustache and everything that he has, his trench coat and his hat. But like
I remember that. I
the
I remember him in Lee J. Cobb. Yeah, was he in? He was in Doctor Strangelove, right?
so that's George C. Scott,
That.
and
Oh,
they came from the same school of big energy acting. it's,
okay.
it's well, and what's actually really interesting that you bring that up, Alex. Fun fact: so Lee J. Cobb is juror number 3 in the original 12 Angry Men. George C. Scott's juror number 3 in William Friedkin's late 90s remake of 12
Oh
Angry
wow.
Men.
Oh,
So they
that's
played the
great.
same character
That's
in
insane.
12 Angry Men.
Very good.
Um,
Makes sense.
yep, they have a very similar type of acting. But
Yeah.
no, I love George C. Scott. He's one of my favorite actors. He's the we are gonna have a mine shaft gap. And just like everything is like put to here because
Yeah.
Stanley Kubrick tricked him. Um
Oh,
because
really?
he's like, I think we need to play this a little more straight. He's like, well, George, do it straight a few times, and then I want you to do some fun ones for me. He used all the ones where he's like
Oh,
over
where
the
he's going
top.
crazy, where he's going over the moon.
Yep.
Yeah, that's perfect. That's
Yeah. Stanley Kubrick in a nutshell.
oh yeah.
Manipulating his actors in not all the best ways. Like even
Yeah.
like Rod Steiger as Charlie. Um, we mentioned Eva Marie Saint's fantastic, and just like a lot of those character actors that plays like Duggan or like all of the guys in Johnny's crew feel so real. Like these would be henchmen in organized crime for sure, and like all those kinds of things. But like, I just love this film to pieces, and this is one of the first like old Hollywood films that I've done on this series so far, and I was very excited to finally like tackle this one because not gonna lie, a lot of like my really tippy top outside of like Ben-Hur, most of these films are from like the past, like, well, since I've been alive, or at least the
Yeah.
80s and stuff like that. So this was fun going back and looking at an old Hollywood classic like this. But
Yeah.
the last thing I wanted to bring up was a nice little question I had for you. So, Alex, what's your favorite Brando performance?
This has to be it. This has to be it. Of the ones that I've seen, I
Mhm.
definitely need to see some more. I never saw Last Tango. Believe it or not, I never got far enough in Apocalypse. I never got,
You
but
have to
this.
get to way to the end.
Right, right. It's very, very much at the end. I know. I never obviously I saw The Godfather, and he's great in The Godfather, but I really feel like it's not his, it's not really his film. It's Pacino's film. It ends up
Yep.
becoming Pacino's film. And Pacino is legendary in that freaking movie. So many
Before
times.
before he Pacinoed out all the time.
Right, right.
Um,
He was a he was a whole different person.
it's just like he went into the 80s and then something changed.
Right. Something changed.
Um,
Yeah,
because then he did
absolutely.
Scarface and then had like a huge gap. And then the rest of the early 90s was like, we're going up to 11.
Right. Right.
Everything. Wow.
Don't waste my motherfucking time. I
It's
don't
just
I
like
think I was drinking beers one night and I was watching Heat because I never really gave it and then I kind of love Heat now. But it's almost like a B movie to me because of the way he acts in it. I'm like drinking beers like, oh, this is freaking awesome.
fun fact. Supposedly Hannah had a cocaine problem
Right.
in the original script.
I think you
And,
told me about
and
that.
Pacino just went with it.
Right.
Because
Yeah, but
that that
they
has
never
to be
reveal
true.
that in the movie.
Has to be true.
So you're
It's
like,
the only way that makes sense.
why is he a nutcase?
Just like
Watching
she's
my motherfucking TV.
it's just like, okay, he can stay in your house, sitting on your couch, but he's not watching my TV. And just like just grabs the TV out of the wall and then Takes it out of his car. Oh man. But no,
It's
that
like,
you bring up a very important point because like obviously Brando won Best Actor for The Godfather. Like
right.
he's a supporting character.
Supporting role. Yeah,
Like if
that's
you take a step back, he's a supporting
oh,
character. But
100%. He's
there was
amazing.
no way they were
Yeah,
going to run that campaign
right, of
that
course.
way.
Marlon Brando. Yeah, of course they're gonna give him. They're not gonna. Right. Yeah.
Well, and you know, Pacino probably should have had like 4 Oscars by the time the 70s wrapped.
It was a great
But
decade for cinema, and it was yeah. He had some great roles, Serpico and
Dog
Dog
Day, I just rewatched Dog Day Afternoon
Dog
recently, and then both
Intense.
Godfather films from the 70s. I
Yeah,
think And Justice for All wrapped up that streak that he had.
I think I saw that. That is that the You're Out of Order. You're Out of Order. Yeah, I did see that. I
Mhm.
saw that. I only saw it once years ago.
I like how he only Pacino's out once in the first 2 Godfather movies, and it's that moment where Kay's like, "Our marriage is an abortion," and
Yeah,
then he just like, "Ah!" and then like comes at her, and hits her. I'm like, "Well, there's the Pacino
there it
that's
is.
gonna become that
That's
Pacino."
that scene. That scene is
Oh
oh
man,
my God.
I
Oh
d-
my God.
like. I would love to say like him. Brando is Don Corleone is my favorite performance, which also like our buddy Matt thinks that he does a great Brando impression. That's all that he does. Sorry, Matt. Sorry, throwing shade at you. But like in actuality, it's just like make him an offer he can't refuse. It's
Mhm.
just like that he
Right.
has those fake
Yeah.
jowls that they put in and everything, and
Right.
it's
Right. Yeah.
just there's so many great acting moments, and even like his death scene where he's playing with his grandson
Yeah.
in the garden and everything. But no, like on the waterfront, Terry Malloy, this might be one of the best performances ever,
Right.
period, in
It,
movies.
and it almost makes you like when you go and watch those other Brando performances, like around that time, you might be a little disappointed because it's not at this level. Like, it's like you just saw like, whoa, you just saw like a
Yep.
masterpiece. And now he's got these other really good performances, but they're not going to top this, you know.
Well, and from what I understood, like this took so much out of him,
Yeah.
like these early performances in his career.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then he didn't have a whole like he didn't have that to like draw upon anymore.
Right.
So like, a lot of it like his career went in a different kind of direction. And then he gained tons of weight and
Yeah.
apparently couldn't remember his lines.
Yeah.
And
Yep.
like Apocalypse Now is a complete shit show. Not even including him.
Yeah. Right.
Hearts of Darkness, that documentary is wild.
I need to
Um,
watch that. Yeah, I need to watch that. It's a tough movie to be like, hey, honey, you want to watch Apocalypse Now? It's a
well,
tough.
and like Brando had to wear black pajama looking
Yeah.
stuff instead of his military uniform because he couldn't fit in it. He showed up 50 pounds overweight, couldn't remember any of his lines.
Oh my God. Oh my.
So, like, Francis Ford Coppola's already losing his mind at this point, and then had to deal with all that. They had to change. They didn't even have the ending written. They were
Right.
like writing those lines and everything, and then Brando's just this mysterious entity, and just like you're just an errand boy sent to collect a bill, and just sitting there stroking his bald head in the shadows and everything. You're just like, what the hell am I watching?
Yeah,
and
that's what everyone, right. Yeah.
and that has influenced like
Well,
anybody who's a fan.
what I've heard people say is that like the first two-thirds is a good movie. Or some people have said, and then the last act, it just goes off the rails.
Well, it narratively matches where Willard is mentally, which is, I don't like using this term, but like off the reservation. Like
Okay.
he's gone.
Right. Right.
Like, and
Yeah.
it is wild, it is dark, it's twisted, it's messed up. It's like, what the hell's even going on here? This is just
Sure.
madness. Um, and it's so funny because like if people out there listening are fan of Dune, Stellan Skarsgård whole entire performance as the Baron was very influenced by Brando
Okay.
from Apocalypse Now.
Oh, interesting.
There's even a point where like his big fat bald head and he's just stroking his head and like that. I'm like,
Yeah.
I remember sitting in the theater, I'm like, somebody Apocalypse Now.
Yeah, yeah. Oh, there you go. No, you're not wrong. I didn't think of it because I didn't see that the part,
Yeah,
but I liked the two Dune films. I
yeah.
thought they were really good. I thought they
They're
were.
setting up Messiah now. We're
Oh
getting
yeah.
a
Oh, they
third
are
one.
doing it. They are
Yep,
doing a third one. And
yep.
is it going to be Denny? Is Denny going to do it?
Yes. And
Whoa.
there's a significant time jump between the stories. I've read the first Dune, haven't read any of the other, how many other novels there are. But
Right.
things are gonna get very interesting. But all I'm
I,
imagining is Brando would have been a great Baron.
I think so. I think so. Yeah.
Like I can imagine him doing that in like David Lynch's Dune for sure.
Yes. Oh, without a doubt. Oh yeah, sure.
That would have been an interesting choice for sure.
Yeah.
But that's our discussion on the waterfront. Alex, thank you so much for coming on and talking movies with me.
Of course, man. Absolutely. Thanks for having me. So much fun.
And thank all of you for listening. Make sure to like, comment, and share on this episode. What's your favorite Brando performance? Have you checked out on the waterfront? Who are some of your favorite actors that came out of the studio with the method and everything from that era? I'm a huge Carl Malden fan, like I mentioned. Make sure to follow or subscribe wherever you listen to your podcast. The SPDM Crew Podcasting Network is ever expanding to the point where I'm having trouble keeping up with all these shows, but there's a wide range of all different kinds of content that you can enjoy on our network. And if you want to join the crew, whether you want to be a guest on one of our shows like this one, or if you want to make your own podcast yourself, please make sure to reach out on our website. And if you liked the logo for this show, which, not gonna lie, not to play favorites, this is definitely my favorite logo out of any of the podcasts that I have on here. And this is from my buddy Joe. Joey T, who's also part of our movie club. Joe made this logo for me. And if you're interested, he has an Etsy store and he does all kinds of fun, creative things with digital drawings. So go check out his work. But most importantly, thank you as always for tuning in and supporting the Wasteland Vintage Roadshow here on the SPDM Crew Podcasting Network.